If some of you soft assists don't sleep in on the bed, I reckon you can do worse than a love for their easy rest. End of commercial. Andy Griffith made Mayberry feel like home, a quiet town, friendly faces, and a show that millions fell in love with. But did you know that not everything was as sweet behind the scenes? While fans loved every quirky character, Andy secretly couldn't stand one of them. And it wasn't just mild dislike. He truly hated working with this co-star. Their feud was so real, the tension slipped into the show itself. Shocking, right? For a show built on small-town charm, this off-screen drama might just surprise you. Join us as we look deeper into Andy's world, his hit show, and the one co-star he just couldn't stand. From small town to big dreams, Andy Griffith was born on June 1, 1926, in a small town called Mount Airy, North Carolina. He was the only child of Carl and Geneva Griffith. Life wasn't easy in the beginning. His parents didn't even have a crib or bed for him. As a baby, Andy slept in dresser drawers until his family could afford a home. In 1929, when Andy was 3, his father got a job as a helper or carpenter. That's when they finally bought a house on the working-class side of town. Andy grew up knowing his family wasn't rich. He understood that some people looked down on others from his neighborhood. It made him quiet at school. But soon, he found something special. He could make people laugh. That changed everything. He slowly came out of his shell. At Mount Airy High School, Andy discovered a passion for the arts. He joined the school's drama group and fell in love with music, especially swing. His Baptist upbringing also played a role. A local minister named Ed Mickey became very important to him. Ed led the brass band at church and taught Andy how to sing and play the trombone. He believed in Andy and helped him grow as a performer all the way through high school. After graduating in 1944, Andy was thrilled to get a role in The Lost Colony, a play written by Paul Green. The show tells the story of the early settlers on Roanoke Island. Andy performed in it for several years and worked his way up to playing the role of Sir Walter Raleigh, the man North Carolina's capital is named after. But there was more ahead. Andy went on to study at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. At first, he planned to become a Moravian preacher, but soon music called to him again. He switched his major to music and joined the Carolina Playmakers, a group known for their stage productions. He also became the president of the university's music fraternity, Phi Mu Alpha Sinfonia. In 1949, Andy acted in several operettas like The Chimes of Normandy, The Gondoliers, The Mikado, and HMS Pinafore. In 1949, he graduated with a degree in music and started teaching drama and music at a high school in Goldsboro, North Carolina. One of his students was Carl Cassell, who would go on to become a famous radio personality. But teaching wasn't all Andy wanted to do. He had stories to tell and a stage calling his name, a natural-born storyteller. Andy's career didn't begin with acting in films or TV shows. He first became known for telling funny stories. One of his most famous early pieces was called What It Was Football. In the story, Andy played a country preacher who didn't understand the game of football. The preacher describes everything in a confused but funny way. The monologue was released on a record in 1953. By 1954, it had become a hit, reaching number 9 on the charts. That one piece showed people that Andy had something unique. He had a special way of making you laugh while also telling a story you could picture in your head. His voice, timing, and personality made him stand out, and soon television came calling. In 1955, Andy starred in a 1-hour TV play called No Time for Sergeants. It aired on the United States Steel Hour, a popular show at the time. In it, he played Will Stockdale, a country boy who joins the U.S. Air Force. The audience loved the character, and just a few months later, Andy brought the same role to Broadway in New York. His performance, in the full-length version of No Time for Sergeants, got him nominated for a Tony Award. He didn't win the Tony, but he did receive the 1956 Theatre World Award given to promising new actors. Critics were impressed. One review from the New York Times said, "Mr. Griffith does not have to condescend to Will Stockdale. All he has to do is walk on the stage and look the audience straight in the face." Andy's charm wasn't just for theater. The success of No Time for Sergeants led to a movie version in 1958, where he played the same role. This time, he worked alongside Don Knotts, who played a strict corporal. That pairing turned into something special, and a friendship that would last for decades. Many believe that this movie inspired the TV comedy Gomer Pyle, USMC, which also featured a country boy in the military. But Andy wasn't done surprising people. His next big step took him to Hollywood, but not for laughs. A darker role and a deeper talent. In 1957, Andy made his big screen debut in a film called A Face in the Crowd. This wasn't a funny movie. It was a powerful story about a man who becomes famous and lets that power go to his head. Andy played a drifter who rises to fame as a TV host, but becomes greedy and controlling. It was a serious role that showed a different side of him. The film was directed by Elia Kazan, known for his bold storytelling, and written by Bud Schulberg. Andy acted alongside stars like Patricia Neal, Walter Mitthau, and Tony Francesa. It was also the first film for actress Lee Remick. Years later, in a mini-documentary included with the DVD release, Andy spoke about working with director Kazan and filming a scene with Remick's character. He remembered how Kazan helped him get ready and how intense that first scene felt. Andy also said the movie gained more fans over time, even though it wasn't a big hit when it first came out. This dramatic role proved Andy wasn't just a country comedian. He could take on deep and serious characters too, and soon his face would become a regular sight on American TV screens. The road to Mayberry begins. Andy's first time on television was in 1955 with the No Time for Sergeants teleplay, but it wasn't until 1960 that things really took off. That year, Andy guest starred in an episode of Make Room for Daddy, a show starring Danny Thomas. In that episode, Andy played a small-town sheriff who also worked as a justice of the peace and edited the town newspaper. The story was simple. Danny's character got stopped for running a stop sign, but something about Andy's character stood out. That episode ended up being a backdoor pilot for the Andy Griffith Show. It was a clever way to introduce a new show without making a separate pilot episode. The producer behind both shows, Sheldon Leonard, saw Andy's talent and built a whole world around it. From that moment, Mayberry came to life. The Andy Griffith Show. In September 1960, The Andy Griffith Show made its debut on CBS. From the very first episode, it was clear something special had been created. Andy Griffith played Sheriff Andy Taylor, a widower living in the small, peaceful town of Mayberry, North Carolina. He wasn't just a sheriff, he was also the town's wise man. He gave advice, solved problems, and kept the town calm. But did you know that the show wasn't filmed in North Carolina? Most of it was shot at Desilu Studios. The outdoor scenes were filmed in Culver City, California, at a place called 40 Acres. But to the audience, it all felt real. Mayberry became a town people wanted to visit, even if it only existed on screen. From 1960 to 1965, Andy starred alongside his real-life friend Don Knotts. Don played Deputy Barney Fife, Andy's sidekick and best friend. In the early episodes, the two characters were even called cousins. In one scene, you can hear them say Cousin Andy and Cousin Barney. But later, that idea was dropped. Instead, they were just lifelong friends who had known each other since childhood. Ron Howard, who was just a kid at the time, played Andy's son, Opie. Viewers loved their sweet father-son bond. Even though Andy never got a writing credit for the show, he was involved in shaping every script behind the scenes. He wanted the show to feel natural, and it did. Don Knotts was praised for his funny and lovable role. He won several Emmy Awards. So did Frances Bavière, who played Aunt Bee, winning in 1967, but oddly enough, Andy Griffith himself never got an Emmy nomination. He didn't seem to mind much. He just kept making people laugh. But eventually, Andy was ready for something new, leaving Mayberry behind. In 1967, Andy still had one season left in his contract with CBS, but he made a big decision. He was going to walk away from the show. After years of playing Sheriff Taylor, he wanted to explore new roles, maybe even in movies. It was a tough choice. The show was still very popular, but Andy felt it was time. The show didn't end right away. It turned into Mayberry RFD, with a new lead character named Sam Jones, played by Ken Berry. Sam was also a widower, but he was a farmer instead of a sheriff. Many of the original characters stayed on, either as regulars or as guest stars. Andy helped behind the scenes as executive producer. He later said he would come in once a week to look over the scripts and give feedback. Andy even appeared in 5 episodes of the spin-off. One of them was the pilot episode, where he marries schoolteacher Helen Crump. It gave fans some closure to Andy's love story. Years later, Andy returned as Sheriff Taylor for one last adventure in Return to Mayberry, a TV movie that aired in 1986. He reunited with Don Knotts and the rest of the cast. 2 more specials came after that, one in 1993 and another in 2003. Each time, the ratings were high. It proved that fans still missed Mayberry and Andy. But the days of Mayberry were over. Andy had other stories to tell and new characters to become. What came next would surprise even longtime fans, the Southern lawyer who always won. After leaving the Andy Griffith Show in 1968, Andy tried out new ideas. He created his own production company in 1972 called Andy Griffith Enterprises. He worked on several new TV shows over the years, including Headmaster, the new Andy Griffith Show, Adams of Eagle Lake, Salvage One, and The Jaegers. But none of them were as big as Mayberry. In 1983, Andy faced a personal health battle. He spent 7 months recovering from Guillain-Barré syndrome, which caused paralysis in his legs. But he didn't let that stop him. In 1986, he returned to television with a brand new role as lawyer Ben Matlock. The show Matlock was set in Atlanta, Georgia. Ben Matlock was smart, kind, and always found a way to win in court. He spoke with a Southern accent, just like Andy, and wore simple suits. People loved him right away. By the end of its first season, Matlock had become one of the most popular shows on Tuesday nights. The show gave a chance to young actors, too. Nancy Stafford played Michelle Thomas, and Clarence Gildiard Jr. played Conrad McMasters. Both actors had grown up watching Andy on TV. Now they were starring alongside him. Even though Matlock was nominated for 4 Emmy Awards, Andy was again left out. But fans didn't care about the awards. They watched because of Andy. And in 1987, he won a People's Choice Award for the role. Andy had created another character people could trust and root for. And he wasn't done appearing on screen. From Mayberry to Matlock and everything in between. Over the years, Andy made appearances on many TV shows. He showed up on Playhouse 90, Gomer Pyle, USMC, The Mod Squad, Hawaii 5-0, The Doris Day Show, Here's Lucy, The Bionic Woman, and Fantasy Island. Just to name a few. In 1997, he returned as Ben Matlock for one episode of Diagnosis Murder. His final appearance on television came in 2001 in Dawson's Creek. But the story of the Andy Griffith Show started even earlier than most people realize. It all began with an episode of The Danny Thomas Show. In that episode called Danny Meets Andy Griffith, Danny's character gets pulled over for speeding in Mayberry. That short meeting with Sheriff Taylor set the stage for the whole show. At the time, Andy had already been doing well in films and theater. He wasn't sure about doing a TV show, but TV producer Sheldon Leonard saw something in him. He offered Andy a new show built around that sheriff character. Andy didn't love the idea at first, but he liked Sheldon Leonard, so he agreed. Later, Andy would say yes for another reason. He ended up owning more than half the show. That was a smart move. One thing Andy always stood by was his dislike of filming in front of a live audience. He explained it in an interview with author Richard Kelly. He said, "With the audience, you must have jokes every so often, every few minutes. Most of those 3 camera shows don't have character comedy at all. They have joke comedy. The audience is what creates the problem. You must entertain that little handful of people. So you have to have the jokes. When you shoot with 1 camera, you have no audience, so you have character comedy. I prefer that." Andy wasn't interested in chasing cheap laughs. He wanted to focus on people, their stories, their feelings, and their relationships. That's what made Mayberry special. That's what made Matlock different. And that's what made Andy Griffith unforgettable. But even with all the charm and success, not everything on the Andy Griffith Show came easily. Behind the scenes, one thing they really struggled with was love. When love didn't come easy in Mayberry. Writing romance for the Andy Griffith Show wasn't simple. Andy Griffith in real life wasn't very comfortable with showing affection, and that made it harder to show love on screen. That personal struggle showed up in the way Andy Taylor's relationships were written into the show. At first, they tried different women to match with Andy, but nothing really clicked. In the early seasons, one of those women was Ellie Walker, played by Eleanor Donahue, who had already become well-known from Father Knows Best. On paper, she was smart, independent, and confident. But Eleanor herself didn't feel right in the role. In her own words, "I felt like a bird out of a nest. I didn't feel like I had all my feathers yet." Even though she had a 3-year contract, she asked to leave after just 1 season. She didn't feel confident, even though people told her later that she was doing just fine. "I was just not a happy camper," she said, "and there was no point in my trying to continue with it." Years later, Eleanor saw Andy at an event and apologized for leaving the show early. Andy, always kind, told her something she didn't expect. He said, "They just didn't know how to write for me." Looking back, Eleanor agreed that maybe the chemistry wasn't really there. "They tried a lot of other women periodically," she added. But then Annetta Corsall came in. And when Annetta arrived, things changed. Andy and Helen on screen and off. Annetta Corsall played Helen Crump, the local school teacher. From the moment she appeared, the tone of the romance felt a bit different. Even though the relationship on screen was sweet and wholesome, some viewers felt it lacked real depth. But behind the scenes, rumors started to spread. People began saying that Andy and Annetta had a real-life relationship. If this was true, it could explain why he was more at ease with her compared to the other actresses. Over time, the character of Helen became a more regular part of Andy's world. But it took the writers a long time to reach that point. For a long while, they believed the romantic storylines weren't working because of the women they cast. Later, they realized the problem wasn't the actresses. It was the writing. And it was Andy himself. He once admitted, "I didn't know how to play it." Romance, at least the kind meant for TV, just wasn't his strength. The writers struggled with the same issue. They were good at small-town charm, father-son stories, and light humor. But writing romantic scenes that felt real, that was tough. The team had to slowly build the connection between Andy and Helen, making it feel natural. Still, even after years of trying, many fans thought the relationship didn't go very deep. And yet, as the show came to an end, the writers had to make a big choice about Andy and Helen's future. Why Andy didn't want Sheriff Taylor to get married? For years, fans watched Andy Taylor share sweet moments with Helen. They laughed, smiled, and wondered if the couple would ever get married. Andy Griffith had other thoughts. In fact, He once admitted that marrying the character would change the entire show, and not in a good way. In an interview with the Associated Press, Andy explained it clearly. "I don't think the show works as well in a family situation, with Andy given a wife and a house." He went on to say that shows like The Lucy Show or The Danny Thomas Show were built around one lead performer. But the Andy Griffith Show was different. It was a mix. We have others, Don Knotts, Aunt Bee, and the boy. And there's a balance. Andy is only incidentally in many of our shows. What Andy meant was that his character wasn't supposed to be the center of attention all the time. The show worked because it focused on everyone. Barney, Aunt Bee, Opie, and not just him. "If we married him," Andy said, "it would completely change the show." He was proud of what the team had built. "We've spent 2 good years doing just about the same thing," he said, "and while we'd all like to explore new areas, I don't think we ought to change. All of us still love the show, and the public likes it." But even with that belief, the story eventually had to move forward. That's to when the spin-off began, from Mayberry to marriage and beyond. As the Andy Griffith Show came to an end, CBS prepared to launch its spin-off series. Mayberry RFD. Andy Griffith had a strong reason to stay involved. He owned more than half of the original show, so when the new show started, it was important for Andy to help keep the story strong. That's why the last few episodes of the Andy Griffith Show were used to set things up for Mayberry RFD. In those final moments, Andy Taylor and Helen Crump finally got married. It was a quiet but meaningful moment. Don Knotts returned as Barney Fife, this time to serve as Andy's best man. Opie was there, of course, played once again by Ron Howard, and with that, the Taylor family's journey continued into the new series. Andy, Helen, and Opie stayed on for a few more episodes before the characters moved away to Charlotte, North Carolina. After that, Andy only appeared now and then, giving the new lead character, Sam Jones, more room to grow. But the spirit of Mayberry stayed alive even as new stories were told. In 1986, fans got one last chance to visit Mayberry again. A reunion movie, Return to Mayberry, brought most of the original cast back together. Andy Taylor had been working as a U.S. postal inspector in Cleveland, but he returned home to run for sheriff once more. However, there was a twist. Barney was also running. That friendly tension brought some fun back to the screen. Meanwhile, Opie was now grown up, married, and expecting his first child. He was trying to decide whether to stay close to home or take a job in Binghamton, New York, as a reporter. The movie was a success. It let fans catch up with old friends. And even though the world had changed a lot since the 1960s, Mayberry had stayed the same. That's as what made it special. Speaking of which, the Andy Griffith Show gave viewers the peaceful town of Mayberry, full of kindness and charm. Andy Griffith and Frances Bavier, who played Sheriff Taylor and Aunt Bee, became household names. On screen, they seemed like a perfect family. But in real life, their relationship was far from perfect. A feud with Frances Bavier. Andy and Frances were 2 very different people. They were both talented, but their personalities didn't mix well. That caused problems behind the scenes. Their off-screen tension became one of the show's best-kept secrets, one that fans would only learn about later. Just like the public was surprised by the feud between Selena Gomez and Francia Risa, many were shocked to find out that Andy and Frances also had real-life issues. While they kept their professional roles going strong, their personal connection was distant. The clash between their personalities followed them through the years, long after the cameras stopped rolling. So how did it all begin? You see, on the show, Andy Griffith played Sheriff Andy Taylor. He was the wise, kind-hearted sheriff who solved problems with patience and calm. He wasn't just keeping peace in Mayberry. He was also raising his young son, Opie. Audiences loved his gentle ways and the simple lessons he taught. Frances Bavier played Aunt Bee, Andy's aunt and the heart of the household. She cooked meals, gave advice, and offered warmth to the people around her. She became a symbol of family life in America, a loving aunt who always made things feel like home. But behind the scenes, things weren't as sweet. Frances Bavier liked to keep to herself. She didn't spend much time joking around or socializing with the rest of the cast. Some people thought she was distant or hard to talk to. She had strong opinions about her work and didn't like to be told what to do. She wanted things done a certain way, and she made that very clear. Howard Morris, who acted in the show and also directed some episodes, once said working with Frances was like navigating a landmine. Even a small request, like asking her to move a few inches for a better camera shot, could upset her. Meanwhile, Andy Griffith had a more relaxed and easygoing personality. He liked to laugh and have fun on set. Naturally, their different styles caused friction. It wasn't a dramatic fight, but there was a quiet, constant tension between them. And that tension didn't go away for a long time. Regret and reconciliation. Frances Bavier had a strong personality, and sometimes it made things hard for others on the set. Her co-stars felt they had to be careful around her. She didn't like cursing and didn't hesitate to say so. Some said she just wasn't used to the fast pace of television, as she had come from a background in film. Andy Griffith later shared that she called him shortly before she died. On that call, she apologized. "I'm sorry we didn't get along better. It was my fault," she told him. Andy said she regretted being so difficult on the set. She even admitted that the show's success had a lot to do with him. Before that phone call, there had been attempts to make peace. At one point, Andy visited Frances without warning. He wanted to reconnect, but it didn't go well. She didn't like surprise visits and felt her privacy was invaded. That made things worse, but time and illness made Frances reflect. As she faced serious health issues, she began to think about her past. She realized the tension between her and Andy had lasted too long. She made the call, and that phone call helped heal years of distance. Their story shows that sometimes even strong personalities can find peace if they're willing to talk and forgive. Their final days. Frances Bavier passed away in 1989. She was 86 years old. Though she had grown up in New York City, she spent her final years in North Carolina. She moved there after retiring in 1972 and stayed for almost 2 decades. The small-town lifestyle reminded her of Mayberry, and it brought her a sense of comfort. In her final days, she had heart problems and spent time under medical care. She was treated at Chatham Hospital, including time in the coronary care unit. She was sent home a week before she passed. While the exact cause of her death wasn't made public, it's believed it was heart-related. Andy Griffith lived many more years after that. His health troubles started in 1983 when he was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome. The illness left him unable to walk for 7 months. In 2000, he had major heart surgery, quadruple bypass. Later in 2007, he had hip surgery after a fall. On July 3, 2012, Andy Griffith died at his home on Roanoke Island, North Carolina. He had suffered a heart attack the day before. He was also 86 years old. His death certificate mentioned hypertension, coronary artery disease, and high cholesterol as health problems he had. His family buried him just 5 hours after his death in a local cemetery on the island. CNN reported his passing as a great loss. For many fans, it was the end of an era. Andy had been more than just a TV actor. He was a symbol of kindness, tradition, and calm in a world that was always changing. Even though Andy and Frances had years of tension, they found a way to let go of the past. That one phone call just before her death gave both of them a chance to leave the pain behind. Did you ever feel the tension between Andy and Aunt Bee while watching the show? Or did their performances completely hide it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.